Star Trek will not be presented tonight, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for another Word Balloon, but it is an Trek Watch. My usual crewmates of Mitch, Franco, and Wayne are off on assignment, but I contacted the nearest starbase, and I managed to grab the man behind Dork Court and one of the men behind Serious Star Trek, a fantastic YouTube show that I try to catch on a regular basis. Wow. It's Captain Stacy himself, Larry Young. Good to see you, man.
Hey, John. How are you?
Doing all right, man.
Man, thanks for having me on. I love watching Star Trek. I like watching it. I like talking about it. I like wearing shirts from Star Trek. I like getting really upset about arguing things that don't matter about Star Trek. It's really fun.
Larry, you got seriously like the best wardrobe of any Star Trek fan I know, because literally you have pretty much every uniform. I usually see you in your Monster Maroon when you're hosting Serious Star Trek with John Price and the various guests. Now, Dan used to be on the show, and I never say Dan's last name right, so I'll tell you, Shaheen.
Dan Shaheen. Yeah. Dan just he had enough of social media, I think, and he took a break at the holidays.
Okay,
and so he had to do something for his own mental health and his family. I got a feeling, because we didn't really hear anything. We're just like, I can't do it. I'm taking a break. It's the holidays. And so we were like, okay. And we did our little emergency thing. My son and I did Dork Court. It was more of just a funny father and son thing during the lockdown. And so we had that. So we reactivated it and did a little emergency during the holidays Star Trek. And then Dan's just like, you guys got it. You keep doing it. And we're like, great. You tell us when you're doing social media again, you can be a guest on the old show. Well,
sure.
We should do a show where, it's 2019 and we just don't act like we've been doing it our own for a while. It's like just Dan's there, and that's. Anyway, speaking of how much we love Star Trek and the fact that Mitch and the boys are gone, I looked at the Trek thing a little closer than I usually do. Obviously, you look the best. Your hair, everything looks great. You look like a real Starfleet guy. And I started thinking, oh, well, before the show, you were saying, you don't have any uniforms. And I was like, that's perfect, though. Oh, wait, they just photoshopped him on. Oh, and I know the episode. It's Obsession, where Kirk is scratching his chin with a phaser with his finger on the trigger. And I was like, whoever made that picture made the best John Suntrace picture in Star Trek ever, because that's what you want. You've got Star Trek Shatner hair, and you want to be like, yeah, that's right. That's what that.
Well, I have Kirk hair, as we all know. Shatner hair is
right
kept on a pedestal, waiting for Shatner to put it on.
That's such a funny construction. I have Shatner hair. You have Kirk hair.
Have you ever seen that memo? I don't know if it was Bob Justman or whatever, where it's like, hey, Bill keeps taking the toupees.
Yeah.
Can somebody please talk to him.
At the end of season 3, they went missing, and they were like, can you just go to Bill's house and get those back? That's studio property. And then you see him on Hollywood Squares like a year later, and he's got like a brown box on his head.
Oh, God, I got to look that up. That's fantastic.
No, I just mean metaphorically, he has a really shitty toupee, That's
funny. I was just watching when Shatner was on Columbo, and he was the '70s show, because I know he was on the '90s show as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he's Detective Lucerne,
Oh,
and it's but a much more posh TV detective than Columbo is, and he's one of Columbo's heroes, and then of course he's the killer. So
of course. Boy, Shatner, man, I really liked that period of his career when he had a really big thing that didn't really go the way he had hoped. And then, so he still has to pay the bills, right? In like Barbary Coast. Do you remember that TV show?
love that show. It's on
Me
YouTube.
too.
Him and Doug McClure. I think
that
every existing, and of course you're a San Francisco guy, so you got to love it even more.
Well, that's what made me love San Francisco, is that I realized that no matter what time, like you can just drop down in San Francisco at any time, and the town's still pretty much the same. There's weird crap going on, and everybody loves it. And then the weirder it is, the more likely you have a parade, or they close down a block once a year. And it's like, it's so welcoming, but so weird and standoffish at the same time, that you think there's no other place really like it. So
I haven't been there since WonderCon was there.
Mm-hmm.
And so like 2009, I think it's the last time I was there. And God, going up all those streets that literally are like this.
Yeah.
So it absolutely was a workout on my knees walking around stuff.
A great story about that. My kid's name is Walker, and it's a family name. It's but my sister's friends, so it's like removed from our family, but still interested. When he was born, they go, "Yeah, oh, your nephew's named Walker. Why is that? Is it because she had to walk up and down the hills of San Francisco?" No. It's like naming your kid Cable Car.
Larry has a son that, based on the photos I saw when he was younger, seemed like a diminutive little guy. Maybe he was always tall. I don't know. But all of a sudden, adolescence, and now he's a hulking thing. And I always tease Larry that clearly he gave Walker the super soldier serum that Steve Rogers got. Now he's like, "Hey, how you doing? I play football and I play lacrosse." And it's like, yeah, I wouldn't mess with Walker.
You know who loves that is Walker Young. He's like, "I got the super soldier serum. I did." It's he was just a regular kid, little pudgy even maybe, and then just then ninth and 10th grade, he grew like 3 inches in a summer, and it was like, I am the Rock now.
Indeed. Absolutely, man. No, he's an action hero, no question. That's fantastic.
We had to activate our second refrigerator. That's what I always say.
Yeah, but that's classic teenager. My nephews were hockey players.
Yeah,
and
same thing though.
And like my sister always said, because then they bring their friends over. It's like, oh God, thank God for cheap pizza, because that's like she'd literally go to like Little Caesars or whatever and spend like $12 on 3 pizzas, and it's like, hey mom, the guys are coming over. It's like, all right, we got it covered. Don't worry about it.
That's excellent.
So
that's the way it should be, though, right? Just you got to feed the machine, and you remember though, we were talking about that. We were gentlemen of a certain age, and you could eat a small cheese pizza by yourself, go to sleep, and wake up the next morning and lose 5 pounds because your metabolism is so fast, right? So absolutely. Having the hockey boys over and killing some pizzas, that's just like, now what do we do, right? That killed 5 minutes.
Pete Beiser wants us to know he's heading on Saturday to the Star Trek Original Set Tour. It's upstate New York, Ticonderoga, everybody, Pencil Country. You've probably talked about this before. The guy rebuilt the original sets in an old supermarket. David Gerald will be there. Oh, that's great, man. The great David Gerald, Trouble with Tribbles. Fantastic.
That was speaking of my kid and David Gerald, that was a cool thing for San Diego this year when we were setting up first thing on Wednesday morning. And you probably know Glenn Howman. He's a comics guy. He and David Gerald were involved with the whole like Dr. Seuss Trek thing. And so when we were setting up first thing in the morning, they were setting up their booth, and it was really cool. My kid's a big original Star Trek fan. So Glenn calls me over and introduces, "Oh, hey, David Gerald, nice to meet you." And this is my kid, and he doesn't really get starstruck, but he's just, you could see like little word balloons over his head. Trouble with Tribbles. He's the Tribbles guy. It was really cute. Anyway, so I have fondness for David Gerald because of that.
Did he do the sequel that was the animated sequel? More Tribbles, More Troubles? Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Absolutely. And also, I have a big, we were going to be talking about the stuff we love about Star Trek.
Yeah.
I have a big collection of Star Trek paperbacks that somebody just on the street, because, every once in a while I'll go outside dressed like this to get a really good shot, And so my neighbors, somebody rings the doorbell. This old Chinese lady. I don't know. She lives down the way. I've never met her. And she goes, "You like Star Trek?" And I go, I do. And she's like, "Do you need these?" I was like, "Is this for me?" She's like, "Yes." It was like 35 trade paperbacks from the late 80s.
Wow.
So David Gerald actually wrote one of those too, which...
Yeah. I have the novel that he wrote.
Galaxy Whirlpool, something like that. Yeah,
I can't remember. Yeah. And also, he wrote that one episode of Next Gen that they didn't use. It's called Blood and Fire.
Oh, the regular bloodworms, yeah.
And it had a gay couple in the story.
Yeah.
And Berman rejected it for Next Generation. And then we mentioned the Ticonderoga Trek tours. James, the guy who produces those Star Trek. James Cawley, yeah. He adapted Gerald's story to be an original series story. And also, Star Trek Continues, the surviving Kirk from Operation Annihilate, his nephew Peter, becomes part of the crew during the Star Trek Continues stories, and they made Peter gay, and so they gave Peter the gay relationship from Blood and Fire, and and also it was funny. I was just listening to Denise Crosby interviewed by Mark Altman and the Treksperts, and that great Trek podcast. And she mentioned that she did the story and stuff. So that's cool. Oh, that's nice, man. Everyone, Adrian Pilecki, Eric's sister, Eric jumping in.
I love Eric's sister's brother reporting.
Well, I used to tease Adrian. I met her at
isn't that Eric?
I met her at Terrificon, and I'm like Adrian's cool brother Eric, and she she loved that. She told Eric, and Eric laughed and everything.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
I wonder because Larry, and I'm so glad you're here, Eric, because I wanted to know and then to ask you online. I can do it now. Larry was showing off some of his great Trek replica props that he owns, and Eric, I wonder if Adrian was able to snag anything from the Orville, and if she has any like handheld props or anything from costume or whatever. I loved it. Did you love the Orville, Larry?
I love the Orville. Yes. Yeah. Big fans of the Orville. But, I just, it's so funny because I kind of followed Adrian's career anyway before I even met Eric. But, I'm like the one guy that loved her in North Shore, right? Like, she was 22 and basically a background character. And I'm like, that girl's got it. Whatever it is, when she goes by on TV, that looks cool. And it made the show better, right? It wasn't like salacious or anything. It was just like, yeah, that's the kind of person you want in this kind of show. And so then she just started showing up everywhere. It was great. Anyway.
No, again,
and then her brother wrote the intro to my Shield book.
I was going to say,
thanks, Eric.
Your fantastic Shield journal for all the episodes. And yes, she was a great Mockingbird. She's a fantastic Mockingbird.
Yeah, we're getting kind of off of Star Trek, but let me tell you, it's a big disappointment when they wrote them out of the show in hopes of spinning them off into Marvel's Most Wanted. And then ABC didn't pick it up, and then they didn't bring them back to the show. It was bananas. And then I don't get why they didn't just take that pilot and make that a Shield episode, right? You've already shot it. It's already done. Just do a wraparound with Coulson going, whew, that was great. I wonder what, Mockingbird's in on. And then run the episode and then well, she can't come back, but, at least she did that. And then you've just got a bunch of free advertising money.
That's
so
awesome.
basically, anytime anybody wants me to run a TV show for them or a mini major studio, just let me know.
Eric says he'll need to ask Adrian. She copped so much shit from the Wonder Woman set, so I'm sure there's Orville swag somewhere. That's great. It's funny because in fact, and then we'll get into Star Trek. Adrian and Peter Macon, who played Bortus on the Orville, I asked them. I'm like, what are the prospects for season 4? And at the time, they're like, well, the thing is, the reason why we got a season 3 was Fox laid out the contract and Disney had to honor it as far as Seth getting a 3rd season. So we're all grateful that we got that 3rd season of the Orville, which was, it only got better as it kept going, that show. But then, and I thought, okay, well, they're probably done. But I'm like, all right, probably not a season 4, but maybe if it does well on streaming, they might consider an Orville movie. And then now it's like, I don't know, Seth is like, hey, never say never. So because I know they all went off to do their other projects subsequent from the Orville and everything, but who knows?
Yeah, John, I think we know. We know what's going to happen because we follow the trades, and as we just canceled our cable for the first time in 30 years. We're a media family, and it was bananas to me. Except literally everything that you can get on wired cable, you can get on streaming. Like literally everything. And when you add it all up, it's a big pain in the ass logistically, but it's hundreds of dollars less, right?
Yeah.
And so we're at the point where I loved this show called Blue Mountain State. And it was a Spike TV show. It was ridiculous. Yes. Animal House with football players, right?
Denise Richards, I believe, on that show.
She was in that, yeah. But it's like Alan Richman and Chris Romanov. He was like one of the producers of How I Met Your Mother. He's kind of a big shot, but these are all stuff these guys did when they were younger. And it ran 3 seasons on Spike. Netflix bought it. I think somebody bought it, and it blew up because it's amazing. Denise Richards is in it. Ed Marinaro is in it. I mean, there's good people, and it's in service of ridiculousness. So it's one of those things like Rex Mantooth, that Fraction book we did where we just treat the talking monkey like Shakespeare, right? And now they did 2 TV movies, and they just announced they're going to do a 4th season with the guy who's friggin' Reacher. Like, their quarterback is like 4 times the size he was 12 years ago. And 4 times as popular. It probably costs 4 times as much to make, but all of those guys are going back and going, no, we're doing this because we love you. And anyway, so I guarantee you in the next 10 years, there's an Orville thing of some manner.
Maybe.
Visit Orville.
Pete Beisner, the Orville was my preferred Trek over the past few years. Absolutely, man. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with Larry was, it must have obviously resonated with me, but I republished my first season review of Discovery as we go into season 5 coming up in a couple of weeks.
Oh man!
And I reiterated, I think weak plots, weak characterization, bad science fiction at the end of the day, in lieu of to me CW teen romance. Does he like me? Doesn't he like me? Oh, he's not paying attention to me. And a few people are like, hey, the classic, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. I really, it bothers me when you're negative about something on your show. I usually like your show because it's always positive. And it's like, hey, can I have one thing that I could be critical of? And especially something like you, Larry, that we've loved for literally most of our lives. I mean, 5 years old was my first Star Trek memories that I can cognizantly think of,
Yeah, I was a little older. I actually came to it in a really weird way. We moved from Texas to Vermont in 1970, the summer of 73. And so we went from, I went to every Dallas Cowboys home game the year before, and now I live in the woods in the middle of nowhere and not knowing anyone and being 10. So I watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons, and that was the year the Star Trek cartoon came out. And I was old enough that I like cartoons, okay, I guess, but I was a real adventure guy. Johnny Quest, give me that all the time.
Love Johnny Quest.
I don't need Hong Kong Phooey. I'd watch it, but like,
I like
and then all of a sudden there's these guys with like lasers and they're being serious, and that guy's got pointy ears. I loved it, and I watched it the whole year. And my dad had some buddy over from work, and I'm talking about this cartoon. He's like, that's a real show, and I was like, yeah, of course, it's this cartoon I watch. He goes, no, they made a show with like real guys, like actors and people, and I was like, what? And then it was all over. I was like, so I was already ready for the characters and situations, but now it's like actually adult and better. Like, come on. So that's how I got the religion.
I respect that. I got to give it up to Lou Scheimer. I saw him in his last San Diego, and Andy Mangels interviewed him because Andy had done the Filmation history book. And Lou said, hey, as far as we were concerned, we were making the 4th season of Star Trek. And, he got really good writers. I mean, even Walter Koenig wrote an episode, but I want to say Larry Niven was one of the writers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Kazinti are in the car. That would freak me out as a boy because I had read that. The Man Kazin War. Not all of them by the time I was 10, but I'd read 1 or 2. So I knew, I didn't understand how it worked. It's like I knew that this was a book thing, and now it's in this cartoon. Like, these guys know the Kazinti? I don't know. That was great.
I love, obviously, I think my favorite of the animated episodes is everybody's favorite episode, Yesteryear.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
And again, I'm sorry, everybody. Every now and then I am going to shit on New Trek. But just the shit that they presented in Discovery as far as, to start off with a character that is, well, this is Spock's adopted sister. And it's like, bullshit. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It put me off right from the beginning. And also what drove me the most nuts, and again, I love watching Mark Leonard. Nobody can top Mark Leonard doing Sarek. And James Frain, who's Discovery Sarek, he just seemed too bemused by Michael as a human, and it's like, that's not Sarek. I mean, I love how he was portrayed in the anime show, and I always say that great scene at the end of Star Trek 4, after they're back on Earth and they got the whales in the 23rd century and everything's fine, and Spock and Sarek have that great scene, and he's like, basically, my son, it's good to see you, whatever, and he goes, these associates of yours. Or he goes, perhaps I was wrong about you joining Starfleet. I was against it at first. These associates of yours, they're of good character. And, Spock in his way, because now Spock is kind of feeling himself again, and he goes, they're my friends.
Yeah.
And Sarek just kind of bristles and is like, yes, of course. In that country club Vulcan way of, oh yeah, that stupid human bullshit that, I guess is part of you as much as I'm part of you. Okay. And it's like, yeah, that's Sarek. I mean, he accepts and he welcomes humans, but it's like he still doesn't quite get humans, even though he married Amanda and everything, which I love.
Yeah, no, that character is amazing, and I think that they, just like everything in Discovery, they just chose wrong at every point, right? It's nobody's fault, really. Like, I
think there's somebody to blame, but
I think it's honestly, I say it's no one's fault because it's clearly one of those creative entertainments produced by committee, right? I mean, the first 2 episodes literally have nothing to do with the rest of the season of season 1. Like, they did 2 episodes that do not matter. And the 3rd episode is the start of the show. And you could literally take everything that happens in those first 2 episodes and give it 2 or 3 lines of dialogue in the little ship where she's going to jail. Like, right. Well, this happened. And otherwise, no, we had to. And then the thing that really killed me is that somebody somewhere talked everyone else into saying, we have a waiting audience. We know it's going to be bananas for views or eyeballs or whatever we call ratings now. So we can literally do whatever we want. And what they chose to do is make the first 3 minutes of new Star Trek be people in rubber masks trying to talk out of dentures in a language no one understands.
The Klingon scene, yes.
So forget that, like, you're opening up a story without being able to understand what the story actually is yet. Like, forget all of that. They have these cool Klingon designs and cool mouthpieces and cool costumes and all that shit. Cool, sets that they're in, or maybe it's just green screen, but somebody did something. It looks fantastic. Wait, but now you're making me read at the same time. It, like, at every step, it was insanity that, like, they just chose poorly.
Well,
So,
and also the redesign of the Klingons, and then we'll get to happy stuff that we like about
right.
stuff.
I was like,
Although we've already mentioned, yesteryear something we love, and we love the animated series.
I got notes of things.
I appreciate that, Larry. Thank you. See, I can go extemporaneous with my love. I mean, it's very easy.
I usually wing it, I was like, I'm ready.
No, I hear you, man. But that redesign of the Klingons, and they are not the only ones where they feel like the brown makeup of the Klingons is like blackface, and it's like, no, man, it was early color TV. They had to choose alien colors that looked good on that very pastel-y original 1966 color, and it's like, all you have to do is stand up and say, no, this is alien makeup. This has nothing to do with Earth ethnicity. And it really does get me mad when modern critics of old Star Trek are like, well, that's blackface. And the Romulans, that's yellow face. And it's like, no, it's alien makeup, guys. And women. I'm sorry, I disagree. And all you have to do is stand up for it and go, no, sorry. Hey, do you notice that both white and black actors have played Klingons over the years? And it's like, I'm sorry, there's an easy understanding. Worf wore makeup. Robert Riley wore makeup as Galron. Mark Leonard was a Klingon in the original motion picture in '79. It's like, relax. It's not. And all you have to do is stand up and say, no, it isn't. Wrong.
One of the things about that, we have these discussions on social media with cats, right? And one of the things that I finally distilled it down to is, like, you have to understand the context under which this story is being presented to you, right? Like, I don't even get into, like, it was a different world back then, because that should be obvious, right?
Of course.
But Star Trek was shot in the late 60s. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that the TV watching audience in the late 60s understands that kids born in the 21st century just don't. And you could tell them and they won't get it. But here's the thing. Everything on television was based on broad strokes of visual storytelling, because nobody had the same kind of television set. Like, now, everybody has a different way of watching on your phone, your watch, or your big screen, or whatever, but the quality is always the same across it. If you're watching on your phone, you can put it right here and it looks letterboxed in a theater, right? And so, but your eyes just think, well, that's resolved to a nice picture. Like, your memory of it isn't pixelated or out of focus unless you have glasses. But you know what I mean? It's like the quality is the same. And so everyone feels that the context under which they're watching it is the same. And it just wasn't back then.
No.
You started this show with their tagline, Star Trek in color. That was a big deal, right? That it was in color.
Well, literally, and I didn't know this, but someone just recently wrote a book, and I heard the author being interviewed on Dana Gould's podcast, how 1967, a year after Star Trek started, was such a pivotal year for television, because that's when across the board, all three networks went to full color.
Oh,
and they were really trying to sell. Certainly, NBC, owned by RCA, was trying to sell color TVs. Hell, going back to the 50s. That's why Hazel, back in like 1959 and 1960, was actually shot in color. But all of these, like McHale's Navy, did not continue as a television series, even though it was popular, because it would have cost too much to go to color. So it ended, and they made those two McHale's Navy movies that we occasionally see on streaming or cable or whatever. McHale's Navy joins the Marines or the Air Force. I forget some of the goofy movies, but yeah, and also even I know Carl Reiner used to say that Dick Van Dyke could have gone into color, but they're like, we got 5 seasons of black and white, or I guess 4 at the time, going into the 5th season. They're like, nah, let's let everything match. It's okay. It's or my favorite Martian. The first 2 seasons were black and white. Last season was in color. It's interesting. So
Yeah. I'm glad Dick Van Dyke didn't do it. That would be so weird. A color season of Dick Van Dyke. I would.
Have you seen those? They took 2 episodes and they colorized them not in that Turner 80s way that they would colorize things, but they did it modern before Carl passed away. And I know CBS had a big special where they showed it was the Richie being born episode was one of them.
Yeah, I'll look that up.
And I forget, or where they think the Petries think, or Rob thinks they brought home the wrong baby from the hospital, and then it turns out at the end it's Greg Morris and wife, and it's a black couple that he doesn't know at the time are black. So yeah, great stuff, man. And the other one was Alan Brady being revealed that he was bald on Laura's on a game show.
That episode,
and so those were the 2 episodes. Here, some comments from the Peanut Gallery. Roberts 100. Spock is always getting those secret family reveals. Eventually, we'll have them all.
Spock's second cousin.
And he also agrees Star Trek was one of the more progressive shows at the time. Absolutely. And Don says, I could see why John likes Larry. They like the same things in that Trek canon. Absolutely. In Star Trek canon. It's true.
We're the old guard. First Star Trek guys. So, speaking of that, look what I brought. I actually made it. Just out of reach.
Oh, my.
That's
Captain Christopher?
The camera.
Yes. Joanne Worley's husband. Roger. I forget the name of the actor. Roger. It was Joanne Worley's husband.
No way. Really? The guy playing Captain Christopher?
Yes, sir. Great episode.
Joanne Worley's. Oh, that's great.
I forget his last name. I'm sure somebody in the chat is going to look it up and give it to us. But
that's one of my top 5 episodes. If you want to talk about a cool episode.
Oh my God.
Mainly because I loved it as a boy, but now as a dad, and especially my kid, who everybody thinks their kid is Jesus. That's how we don't kill them when they're crying in the middle of it. But it's cool that there's Star Trek, my favorite show, has an episode that's pretty much based on, you're cool, you're Top Gun, you got all your shit going on, but in the big scheme of things, you're not really all that badass, except you're the dad of the really cool guy. And I was like, that just has so much resonance for me now. It's like, I'm fine with my life. I'm awesome. But you know what? You're going to be the first. I tell him this all the time. You're first man on Saturn. And he's like, all right.
John Christopher. That's right. He colonized the first Earth colony on Saturn.
The thing that's great is that his son, Captain John Christopher, is the guy that the Kirk meets. His son is Colonel Sean Jeffrey Christopher. And that's badass from a writer standpoint, because I think it's John D.F. Black who is the writer. I'm not sure, but whoever the writer was, he had 3 sons, and they were named Sean, Jeff, and Chris.
Oh, that's great.
So he made his 3 sons the first man on Saturn. Isn't that great?
That's excellent. Don looked it up for us. Roger Perry is Joanne Worley's husband. Later to be seen together on a game show episode of Tattletales with Bert Convey.
Oh, no way.
Absolutely, man. Oh, after that episode, anytime Roger Perry would pop up on TV, it's like, there's Captain Christopher. That's fantastic. And just the whole thing, like, I love your action figure, him in the flight suit, and man, you put the lightning bolts on his helmet, just like in the episode.
Well, that's the thing. I was getting a little, I like G.I. Joes back when I was a kid. So I have mine from back then. It's like 55 years old. And so every once in a while, somebody will give me a Joe. And so I have like, the Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes guy. It's pretty cool. And I just had this Joe kicking around. And I was like, you know what? If I painted his helmet white, put some gold on there, and get a little stickers, I could do, there he is. I could do Captain Christopher.
Absolutely, man. That's anyway. And I love that he's got a Command Gold shirt on, but of course with no,
no rank,
yeah, no rank on it. Exactly, man. That was fantastic.
Man, that causes so many problems. The whole rank and badge thing on there, people will argue forever.
Well,
because
and again, I'm going to zoom in again because people think the Enterprise Delta, and now in today's continuity, that's like a Starfleet General Delta. But no, that was specific to the Enterprise. And you, in your classic original series Gold, you've got the Ron Tracy emblem on your chest. And I forget, what was the name of Tracy's ship?
he had the Exeter. And
Right.
that's from the episode Omega Glory. That's with the American flag and everything. Oh,
yeah, the Yangs and the Combs. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is my top favorite, beyond favorite Star Trek episode. I put that on all the time.
Freedom.
And people just make fun of me, and I just stand there in the hurricane, man, because they're wrong. That is the best episode. Everything they say is cheesy and awful about it is why I like it. You're absolutely right. There's a Bible with Spock in there as a devil. That's awesome. Yeah, there's this old guy. He's actually Morgan Woodward is actually 42 when they shoot that show, and that guy looked like he was 55 for like 30 years, right? But he looks.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just saying. He can kick Captain Kirk's ass. Like, how often in an adventure show does the main character get his ass handed to him in a knuckled fight, right? And I don't know. I think Ron Tracy is the best Starfleet captain ever. And if he had found a cute girl and stayed a couple extra hours, none of that would have happened. He would have been the first guy back.
Edith Keeler would have turned him around and made him a good captain. Absolutely. Well, he also played Dr. Van Gelder in that fantastic episode with James Gregory, where Gregory is the doctor that's got the mind wiping beam. And no, man, what's Morgan's last name? That actor?
Morgan Woodward.
Morgan Woodward. Well, yeah. Woodward or Woodwin or something.
Ward at the end.
Woodward. Yeah, he is God. When I believe that's the first time we see the Vulcan mind meld. When he's Van Gelder.
I think you're right. Dagger of the Minds, first one.
And oh man, it's like he's such a good actor. And he's very reasonable in Omega Glory at the beginning. And Jim, great to see you. Oh yeah, everything's fine. And then he does the evil turn. And as Dr. Van Gelder, my God, he is like raving mad. And deep down it's because this beam has affected him and stuff. No, tremendous actor. Outstanding actor.
That guy his voice it's a musical instrument. They say that as a cliche all the time, but I think of that a lot, but definitely during that episode when Kirk's like, my name is Dr. Simon Van and you're like, holy shit, is that guy okay? And then you're like, no, he's just like a really good dramatic actor, that's all.
All right, and everyone who's listened to the audio version of this, you need to tune in at 37:55 to see Larry's fantastic conniptions as Dr. Van Gelder.
Acting.
Because again, anytime he thinks of his name, much like, all right, one of my favorite short stories was in Star Trek The New Voyages, and it was called Mind Sifter.
Oh my God.
I don't know if it was James Cawley, but somebody made a fan film of the Mind Sifter story, and it's outstanding. I mean, they really did a great job. And the guy that plays Kirk, to me, is a little too thin and small and doesn't have that Shatner swagger that I think is necessary. And again, you don't need to do an imitation of William Shatner to be an effective Jim Kirk. Unfortunately, again, here, a little knock, Paul Wesley, I'm sorry. I personally believe that they cast him to be less of an alpha male than Anson Mount as Chris Pike in Strange New Worlds. But this guy really channels Kirk. And in the Mind Sifter story, you don't see it play out, but the Klingons had abducted Kirk. They used that Mind Sifter device that I think was introduced in that episode with Core, that original series episode with Core.
What is that? Errand of Mercy.
Errand of Mercy, yes. And so they dumped Kirk in the 1950s. Much like Van Gelder, if he starts remembering who he is, it causes him mental pain. And it's this wonderful, it looks like a Twilight Zone episode, the way they shot this fan film of Mind Sifter. And it's over an hour long. It's really kind of almost a mini movie. It's like an hour and 15 minutes long, and it's such a great like combination of like classic Twilight Zone, because a lot of it takes place in this mental hospital, and one of the doctors takes pity on Kirk and kind of falls in love with him, a little transference and stuff. And meanwhile, Spock, well, everyone back in the 22nd century, they're convinced Kirk is dead. Starfleet's like, Spock, you're the captain now. They give him a command gold shirt and everything. And yet, really, Spock can't give up, because that symbiosis he has with some sort of mental link with Kirk is telling him he's still alive somewhere. And they find him. Oh, it's so good. So everybody should watch The Mind Sifter. If you can't find the Book of New Voyages that includes the short story, watch this fan film. You'll love it. You'll love it.
That's I was so into the New Voyages. I know they did at least 2 volumes of those.
That's right.
Every single one was killer. But in that first volume, Mind Sister was the last one. And I don't know if you remember, but they had Star Trek actors do intros for all the short stories. So it was like a legit, it was an event when that comic came, when that trade paperback came out. Because it was like, you got the imprimatur of the guys that worked on it. And Shatner did the intro to Mind Sifter. And it was the last one, because they knew that one was like,
ultimate.
That's a good story. When the bit where Spock comes out onto the bridge, because he's been wearing the blue shirt for like 6 months, and they're like, no, you have to give it up because it's starting to impact morale. And then when he comes out of the turret, you could see it when you're reading it. Like Leonard Nimoy walks out of that turtle lift in the gold shirt, and it's crazy how I have a memory of watching that episode and I haven't seen the fan film. That's how good that writing is.
and when Kirk is still damaged and they get him, and he sees Spock in the gold shirt, and he's like, "What are you doing? That's my shirt." And he's like, "I'm the captain." And even kind of in that moment in Amok Time, where Spock lets his guard down and he calls Kirk Jim, and he's like, "Jim, please." Like this, you're really interpreting this wrong. And like you said, you can visualize all this, because that was during the wilderness years. This was when the animated show might still have been running in syndication or whatever, but from literally 69 till 79, those 10 years, all we had were the occasional novels and the collections of short stories, or Trek magazine with those fantastic essays of people postulating theories about Star Trek and stuff. And
there was a great mag called Enterprise Incidents that I really liked. And there was another one that was just everywhere. Spockanalia. Like what a hippie name for a fanzine. Spockanalia. But it was great, man. It was great. I bought into all that stuff because that's all we had.
Yeah.
And now my kids, like, I'll tell them some weird thing of the old days. Hey, one of the most outrageous things I ever saw, I was just happened to be homesick one day, and I was watching the Gong Show, and these girls were like really doing something to a Tootsie Roll, and it was on, popsicle, and it was on TV. And my kid's like, "You're out of your fucking mind." And I'm like, clickety click click, and there it is on YouTube with 5 million hits, watching this girl eat a popsicle with her friend on the Gong Show, and everybody's trying to get JP Morgan to not buying the thing, because but like, how is that even fucking possible, right? There's some weird ass thing that impacted me in 1976 or whatever. I can show my kid like in under 2 minutes. Just call it up on the TV. Here you go. It's weird.
Ironic timing, Larry, because I haven't put it together yet, but I will. I was on a YouTube rabbit hole, and there was an old-time radio host here in Chicago named Chuck Shaden. He's since retired, but he used to do not only representing the Jack Benny shows and all the great classic shows, but he would do interviews with the living radio actors.
Oh, man, that's cool.
And 1989, he interviews Mel Blanc. And it's like 6 months before poor Mel passed away. He had really serious heart trouble in the last year or two of his life. And he had to stop touring because obviously the voice of all the Looney Tunes, he was playing the colleges all across the country and was so beloved well into his final months. And he had just released his new autobiography at the time. And so Chuck was interviewing for that. And I found this interview and I'm like, wait a minute. I remember hearing this back in 1989. In fact, they took fan calls and I called in.
Oh, that's
So I
awesome.
found this 1989 thing of me asking Mel
John.
Blank. And for younger listeners and viewers, back then, a lot, and you could see it if you watch a lot of the Saturday morning and afternoon cartoons of the 80s. They weren't as snidely and smartly funny as animation got in the 90s and certainly in the modern day. So really, there was this drop off, I think, of intelligent writing, much like new Star Trek, as far as the cartoons go. And I wanted to know what Mel Blanc thought of the current 1989 Saturday morning fare compared to the classic Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera stuff. And he answered and stuff, and that was cool. So it's like this 3 minutes of back and forth with me and Mel Blanc.
Man,
and I'm gonna,
awesome.
it will be on a word balloon coming up soon, everybody. I promise you.
But how neat that you found it, right?
Oh my God, it was such a thrill. And much like that Star Trek Will Not Be Seen Tonight, I've been combing a lot of the old Bob Hope variety shows and other variety specials of the day that would preempt regular programming. And I've got like a Magnum Will Not Be Seen Tonight, an Ironside Will Not Be Seen Tonight, all these little things that I drop in. And if I'm going to talk Star Trek, I certainly do. Well, Star Trek Will Not Be Seen Tonight, but we'll be talking about it. So thank God there's some tapeworms out there that have done that.
I can't believe that you found that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I believe me, man. I was stunned, and it's like, oh, that's great, because it was like I was on radio downstate Illinois in Bloomington, Illinois in the 80s, but it was before I was really full-time Chicago radio in the 90s and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to find something that old that is a representation of me.
That's awesome.
You know, yeah. So that blew my mind, man. So that's awesome. What is your favorite? Do you have a favorite or a couple favorite Star Trek novels?
Well, yeah, actually, I do. I mean, I love.
You don't have to too
yeah,
far
I mean, they're right there. I pulled them out. I just the bottom ones are the box set of the James Blish, the first 8 James Blish.
Love those.
Man, they were so successful that he actually did shorts, the collections of the animated shows as well. So
no, Alan Dean Foster.
Oh, of course.
Did the animated adaptations.
Of course. But wasn't it? It was the same trade dress, right? Because I have like 8, 9,
well, or
11.
maybe in subsequent reissues.
Maybe.
But the animated ones featured like screen caps of the animated show.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but those Blish things. Blish was a good science fiction writer in his own right, which was kind of cool. And same with Alan Dean Foster, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And and in fact, I know after Blish died, there was still a handful of episodes left, and I want to say his wife, like, kind of finished the adaptations for short stories. But they're terrific. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Whoever did, because I loved it as a boy. Anyway, the reason I was so up on your Strange New Worlds, New Voyages, that's the one that has Mind Sifter in it. So
yes.
I just pulled that out as one of my faves.
Sure.
I don't know if you remember Final Reflection by John Ford.
Sure.
That was the first one that was a Klingon one that I really enjoyed. Wounded Sky was the first time I heard
another great one. Sure.
That was the first time I heard of Diane Duane. So maybe this isn't her best one, but she made it because that was the only one I had to hand. And,
my favorite Diane Duane one is Doctor's Orders.
Oh, and that one's great. Yes.
Yeah, because
if
you don't know this one and you're a Star Trek fan, you got to read it, because it would have made such a great episode or even movie where, McCoy. First of all, I love McCoy, and of the Triad, McCoy is the one that is the least explored, in my opinion. And he's just giving Kirk shit like, man, it must be great sitting in that chair, giving orders. You don't have to answer to anybody. What a life you lead. And Kirk's like, hey, I'll tell you what. I got to go down to the planet. You sit at my direct order. You're in command. And Kirk goes down to the planet and has to interface with an alien. And the alien, without Kirk realizing it, or the ship, they slip off into another dimension. So there's no read on the planet of where Kirk is. And his last order was McCoy's in command. And all of a sudden the Klingons show up. And Spock's like, it was a direct order. You're in command. And it's great because even there's a moment like, well, can I at least take a bathroom break? And Spock thinks for a second and he goes, well, technically, yes, but the captain would have said you should have thought of that before you sat down, which is so fantastic. And then McCoy has to figure out a few battle moments with Klingons, but thinking like McCoy. All right, what would I do? And it is so great because it is so consistent to the character.
Yeah.
And it's just this delightful book that is, they're dealing with the kind of usual stuff you'd find in a Star Trek episode, but it's all McCoy. And it's great. And even he's messing with the Klingon captain. And it's like, what happened to your captain? I killed him. And the Klingon's like, you did? And really, he doesn't know what to make of McCoy. It's so fantastic. It's really, really great.
That's the thing I like most about the novels is that the guys at Pocket Books really hired people who understood the characters.
100%.
Which is what makes Discovery so funny.
Yes.
Anyway, another good one was A.C. Crispin.
Of course, fantastic writer.
I think that she's a woman. I don't remember.
I'm reasonably certain you're correct.
But this one's great. It's Yesterday's Sun. It's from Sarpedon, the whole
all our yesterdays
thing.
Yeah,
so
Zarabeth, Mariette Hartley in the fur bikini. Spock regresses to illogical Vulcans, and it's implied that he and Mariette Hartley obviously got down.
Yeah, and that's what they did. That's true.
And they go back to the planet, and there's a scion of Spock's son, so they got to bring him back. And there's even a sequel, Time for Yesterday.
Oh, is there? Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah. Look for that, man. Oh, dude, I was so all over the Bantam and the Pocket Books.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read. Do you know about Star Trek Coda?
I know about it, but just because they let him finish it, which is really cool.
Yes, if people don't know,
but I wasn't reading those then.
Prior to New Trek, the Pocket Books kept going. So, they invent and really both the Picard series and everything in New Trek kind of went against the grain of what was happening in the books. So it turns out it's an alternate universe where the books are happening. And thankfully, Paramount allowed Pocket to finish their stories and have a final 3-novel epic story that tied up all their novel loose ends. And oh my God, in Deep Space Nine, Ezri and Bashir become Section 31 agents.
Oh, that's
cool.
cool.
And Bashir is on some mission. I got to fill in the blanks because I missed a lot of the books, but apparently something happened to Bashir. Well, first of all, Ezri died, something actually they were separated. But I think in the trilogy of books, Ezri passes away. But Julian was so traumatized by some mission, he's catatonic, and Garrick on Cardassia is taking care of Julian.
Aww.
And finally, he goes to what snaps him out of it is, and again, maybe Ezri dies in one of the later volumes. But by the way, everybody dies. Sorry, but again, what else are they going to do? And now they have that license where everybody can die because it's an alternate universe. But Garrick goes to Julian, who's catatonic, and is like, Julian, Ezri's in trouble. She needs you, and that's what snaps Julian out of his catatonic state and everything. Awesome. And all of a sudden, Julian's back. Great stuff, man. And there are several other alternate universes. So Worf is able to get with a Kalar from a different universe, and they find each other, and that's terrific. And Data and his daughter Lal that he creates.
Everybody gets kind of a happy ending if they don't die.
Even though there's an ultimate unhappy ending, everybody finds their significant others and stuff. And Beverly and Picard get married, and they have and it's not Jack Crusher, like in Picard season 3, but they have a kid, and Wesley. It's great. Wesley's like 50 in this story, and he has his traveler abilities and everything, and he kind of bonds with his younger brother. It's fantastic. It's called Coda. Everybody, Star Trek Coda, outstanding.
Actually, I have one more personal observation about the books. The last one I got is Vonda McIntyre's Entropy Effect.
Love that.
But
yes.
I just realized as I'm speaking to you and our pals out in the world that's except for the John Ford Final Reflection one, all of my favorite authors are women. So I know I look like the face of the patriarchy and stuff, but oh my god, like think about DC Fontana, and it seems like women really get the Star Trek thing if they weren't trained on TV for 90210 and stuff.
No, you're absolutely right. Hell, and I'm sorry I don't remember her name, but there's a great Christopher Pike book that came out in the mid-aughts before 2010, and it really fills in the blanks of both past and future Pike living on Talos 4, trapped in that body that doesn't work, but his mind is still very active. And it really gives a full history of Pike. And then further, there's another book, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it was also in the mid-aughts, and it's a McCoy book all about the alternate life that he led on Earth that caused history to change, going back to City on the Edge of Forever. And he goes from the 30s to the mid-50s, and you see how history unfolded differently. And he stays in touch with Edith Keeler, and then he moves down to Georgia. He's from Atlanta, so he moves back to Georgia, and he's a country doctor living in a little town and stuff. And just because, again, he has no choice, because he keeps putting a personal notice in the newspapers, hoping that in the future Kirk and Spock can find him and take him out of it. But it's a dual track where it tells this alternate life, and then it literally goes up to the day that McCoy dies in the proper continuity when we see him in that first encounter at Farpoint Next Gen episode where he's the admiral. He marries I'm spoiling everything. He marries that lieutenant from Shore Leave.
Oh yeah. Oh man, you stumped the panel on that one.
I forget her name, but it's so good.
It's killing me though, because one of my friends just bought her costume for like $25,000.
Wow!
And I can't remember. It's a lieutenant. Oh man,
she's lovely. My God, beautiful woman.
Yeah.
But it's great because not only that, but they also hit key moments in Star Trek history, like when Kirk is missing after the Enterprise B incident at the beginning of Generations, but also after it was at Viridian 3 where in Generations he finally does die.
Yeah, the bridge falls off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's under the bridge. He should be on the bridge. He shouldn't be under the bridge.
Right.
But it's great because like Spock and McCoy kind of console each other. And in McCoy's final days, like a day or two before he dies, Spock comes to Earth. And, McCoy's like, it's you green-blooded hobgoblin. And he goes, yeah, it is me, you country Dr. Quack. And it's like, oh, that's fantastic. Finally, Spock just gives him one back. And it's great. McCoy loves it. And
I was going to say, I can kind of see, like, DeForest Kelly's face going, finally you get what I'm doing. I love you, man.
Exactly. That's what it is, man, because we always knew that. And, I mean, there's that great moment in 3 when they bring Spock's body back before they might, take whatever's left in McCoy's head and puts it back in Spock's head. And he's like, I never meant this to anybody. I've really missed you. And it's like, like McCoy's really bearing his soul to Spock, or even in 4. When
I know everybody loves Kirk and Spock, and everybody's got their favorite ancillary guy, but I'm with you, man. It's all McCoy is 100% human heart, and and it's set up in the structure that way for the show. The whole ego, superego, id thing.
Yep.
There's like to be or not to be. That's the question, you green-blooded fool. You know what I mean? It's all set up for that, for narrative structure, which I get. But as far as I'm concerned, Dr. McCoy is the star of that show because he's the one human being doing this extra human stuff, right? Like Kirk's, he's a little two-fisted, And what proves that I'm right about this is the modern movies. You got Chris Evans, but Carl Urban's the guy that you're watching.
Absolutely. Well, and also another flaw in the JJ movies is they make Spock too emotional. And it's like, no, man. I mean, it's you need those two archetypes kind of pitting against each other. And it's like, no, Carl Urban wins because
But
sadly, Zachary Quinto kind of shows his emotions at a couple points. And you
But-
understand why, but it's
Yeah.
like then Spock disappears.
That's it exactly, though. You need that for Kirk because it's McCoy with like fucking crazy, let's freak out and do whatever, and Spock's like, oh no, let's make our bed first, and Kirk is like, all right guys, we can freak out, but let's make sure the laundry's done, right? And that's what the captain always does, right? And if you don't have that structure, it doesn't work, and that's why the JJ movies don't work.
Yeah, and also the original series episode where we got evil Kirk and good Kirk because of the transporter. Enemy Within. Am I right? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
When meek, indecisive Kirk, Spock's like, hey, we got to do this. You're the captain. This is what we have to do. And McCoy's like, no, we got to think about this, whatever. And finally, at one point, timid Kirk is like, help me. And McCoy's like, Jim, we can't.
Right.
This is your decision. You're the captain.
Right.
You got to find it in yourself. And it's like, no, that's awesome. Again, just like you said, it's like, no, those are the angel and the devil on your shoulder.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. So here, B things. When I first got into Star Trek at the age 12, I thought, sorry guys, I got a cord in the way. I thought Bones was just a downer. But as I got older, I realized he's one of my absolute favorite characters. 100%, man. And again, DeForest Kelly, man, it's so
kind of
much
the genius of Star Trek, though, right? Is that it's obvious in something like the Adam West Batman that there's stuff for the kids and stuff for the adults, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, right? But something like Star Trek does that in a very nuanced way that is actually more impressive. That you can like the Monster of the Week stuff and the fisticuffs and everything, but it's always in service of a greater point. And that's to the point where even the like evil twin trope show that like every single writings room comes up with, they still make it a story structure thing, right? Where the characters are actually putting forth what they're doing there in the show. Where like McCoy is like, he's not exactly the voice of reason, but he's like emotional translator, right?
Yeah.
And he's contextualizing that for the audience. And Spock is the guy that is like, yeah, but I have the credit card, right? and Kirk is like, yeah, but we all have to agree that we're doing this, right? And for the story. And it's, I don't know, I love it. It's like, I watched that episode and I'm like, that is either the hardest thing that writer did that day or the easiest. You know what I mean? It's one or the other.
Well, again, it is so easy for, I think, younger viewers to just see the broad strokes of the original series and not understand a lot of the nuances we got. And I saw online today someone quoted Todd Stashwick from Picard season 3, and he said, he didn't say the problem, and in fact, I think maybe the person quoting Stashwick didn't use this part of. Well, first of all, he's the person quoting Stashwick said, today, New Trek tells you how to think. And then he said, and as Todd Stashwick used to say, Star Trek just made you think and presented both sides. I mean, the whole, con and eugenics and the superior intellect and everything. And it's like, well, this is the dangerous side of that. And you should be aware of that because, yes, we could breed a more intelligent, evolved man, but with evolved desires comes corruption. So we should be aware of that. Today, they represent the debate, if you can call it a debate, the way they presented it today when they had number 1 on trial in Strange New Worlds in the 2nd season. And it was like, well, this is wrong because this is discrimination. And they threw in, and I'm saying this, everybody, not Larry, I'm saying this. They threw in an analogy to discrimination against homosexuality, to people of different colors and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but what they did is they presented a straw man's argument opposed to that, representing Starfleet. And it's like, you got to understand that the people who wrote the original Khan episode, these were World War II vets. And genetic evolution was part of the Nazi plan, the master plan, to create the master race. And it's like, yeah, that, because the argument is, well, that was hundreds of years ago, wouldn't happen today. That's how they presented it in Strange New Worlds. And it's like, No, it's like that possibility is still there, and it's fair to present that argument against what you call a discrimination argument, and they didn't do that. And it's like, no, man. In fact, they did do it. I think in the Deep Space Nine episode when Julian is revealed to have had genetic manipulation to enhance his intelligence and everything, and it's like, no, this is complicated. There isn't an easy answer to this. And instead of, well, it's wrong, and we're here to tell you it's wrong, it's like, yeah, thanks.
Well,
Thanks.
That's my thing with those guys. And I refuse to believe that professional writers are responsible for this. I have to say that it's whoever's doing their corporate edict thing of smoothing all the edges off.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. And I agree with the guy who said it tells you what to do because it's so heavy-handed, right? And there was just something charming about the old show where you have Beale and Loki, and he's half black on the other side, right? Like, there's just something about the way they did it that it's kind of a surprise when you're like, oh my God, this is a racial metaphor. You know what I mean? Where you just don't get that from modern Star Trek. You get it's so heavy-handed that you're like, I get what you're trying to say. And that's why they leave themselves open to all these criticisms of like, they have an agenda, and if you go woke, you're broke. And it's just like, it's all like self-inflicted wounds.
And self-congratulations.
Just tighten your story up a little better. And those voices don't go away, but they're not as loud. And they're easier to go, hey, man, no, look at this. Maybe if you really care, look at that, which you used to be able to do in the old days, right?
Absolutely. And also like A Private Little War, the Vietnam parable.
Oh, yeah.
And they've got the underdeveloped civilization that the Klingons have introduced rifles to the warring faction. And then the faction that Kirk knew when he was a younger officer, they're still pacifists. And it's like, well, what do we do here? And Kirk's solution is we give them rifles, which again is your South Vietnam, North Vietnam, parable right there. And it's fair to obviously go, yeah, but it was still wrong. But at least then they made you like debate, are we doing the right thing? And in fact, it ends with, can you send down 100 flintlocks? And Scotty's like, 100 what, sir? And he's like, 100 serpents for the Garden of Eden.
Right.
And it's like, Kirk knows, all right, this is screwed, but I have no choice. I mean, otherwise these good people are going to be wiped out. So again, I think that's they were really making people think in the 60s at the height of the Vietnam War.
Okay, you made me think that this is what Lower Deck shares with those old scientists, is that when you just did the awesome précis for Private Little War, but think about like all that really heavy stuff, the Vietnam parable, the like balance of power. It's pretty sexy with that priestess. I remember being 12 or 15 going, I want to be a starship captain because this looks bananas fun.
Nancy.
Oh, God. I don't know. Nancy Kovacs.
Nancy Kovacs. Very good.
Man. I'm telling you, thank you for my difficult adolescence, Nancy Kovacs. But in that same episode, you have ridiculous, like the Hua Chang, like Mugatu white gorilla thing.
The white girl with the horn.
And it's all like stupid, really. Like even as a kid, you're like, well, this isn't that dangerous, but he does have to take this route from this woman who's very attractive. So I'm paying attention. But like that, I just started thinking like the Mugatu episode of Lower Decks was funny, sure, but man, there was crazy, like real adult thematic stuff going on in there too. It's almost like they Orville was good for this. That there's shows that go, hey, modern Star Trek, let me show you how to do that episode. And then like 6 months to next season later, they're talking about the same thing and they do it better.
100%.
Like that whole like Discovery AI thing, they did that in one. It was season long. Nobody cared. It was boring. Everybody knew what was going to happen. Why did they do that? And then Orville goes, oh, here's your AI episode. Here's how you do that. And it was fantastic.
I agree, man.
So I think that's happening internally with Mike McMahon and Lower Decks, and going, okay, Strange New Worlds is they've got their thing, but we're going to show you how to do the rest of the stuff. We're just going to be funny about it.
I
love that.
I have to give them credit because I was kind of not a big fan of Lower Decks initially, and it's all right, one or two are pretty good. And then every subsequent season, the show has only gotten better and better. And finally, because to me, Mariner was very much like Michael Burnham and was like solved every problem, was the smartest person in the room. And it's like, we don't need another one of these. And thankfully, they finally strengthened the other three main cast members that they focus on, and it's like, no, she's full of it, and
yeah,
she
they leaned into why
though,
which was cool. Yeah,
true, and but also like every now and then, as ridiculous as Boimler is, Jack Quaid's character,
yeah, no, I
he's
love
the
Boimler.
solution. And also the other thing that drove me nuts about the initial perception of Lower Decks was I always said that Mariner was like Sergeant Bilko, where she's in Starfleet but is trying her hardest not to really have to do anything. And the others were so excited to be in Starfleet. Hey, I'll stack shelves in the mess hall if that's my job. If that's what puts me on a ship in deep space, glad to do it, Captain. What other BS job can I do? I'm just happy to be here. And that's what I loved. And especially Rutherford, that great episode where you found out about his former persona. And he's fighting his old cocky persona and stuff. And even that, because also what drove me nuts about Lower Decks initially was it's that My Little Pony friendship is magic bullshit. And it's like, no, they gave us a reason for it when he was fighting his older persona, where it's like, yeah, you think you know it all. I know I need help. So if this is a place where I can create reality, I'm going to bring my friends in because together we're going to beat you. And it's like, all right, now that makes sense. That's good. You know, shit like that.
Yeah. There was so much great, like, full Star Trek references in that, though. They were wearing the Delta Flyer racing things from... Anyway, I love that one because they took the evil twin clone story trope and did something new with it, right?
Yep.
So I was just like, man, these guys know what they're doing. They ruined me forever, though, when they did the live-action Strange New Worlds crossover.
You know, like it?
I loved it so much. I want live-action Strange New Worlds.
Strange,
and
live action.
Strange live action Lower Decks. Just give all the guys with the voices the job. I don't even care. I know everybody's going to be close. Those two were perfect. Everybody else is going to be pretty close because they kind of draw them away. But Fred Trapsicor, the guy who does Shax, you know, he's a cartoon voice actor, but I guarantee you put that guy in a Starfleet uniform and he will crush it.
Well, Jerry O'Connell certainly could do the first officer.
No, absolutely, yeah.
And the mom could certainly do the captain. I've seen her.
I think everybody you could squint, and even Fred Trapsicor, whatever his name.
Yeah, mentioning Fred Trapsicor and Shax, and I have to say this because I've got my favorite old comic book stories that I've loved of Star Trek, especially when DC had the license.
Oh yeah,
you know, they did a great Mirror Universe several part story that I thought was wonderful.
Right there. It says DC Comics run from 82 to 95. Like every issue.
pretty much every issue. But IDW is killing it these days. Yeah. And you know, they've got the Star Trek Defiant, which is following Worf, and then they've got the regular Star Trek book where Sisko is out of the wormhole and you know, he's doing new adventures. And it's a great the Sisko crew, Scotty, Beverly Crusher, Data, a couple new characters. They're all together. And then in the Defiant book, it's one has Paris. I believe Paris is part of the Sisko crew.
That's cool.
And B'Elanna's in the Worf crew, which is fantastic. But also Shax, when Worf defected, because Worf and Sisko have a disagreement, and so he steals the Defiant and starts his own adventure, basically. And to replace him as security, they bring in Shax.
That's fantastic.
And it's great. And Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzig are writing the Sisko book, and Chris Cantwell is writing the Worf book. They love Star Trek. They love Star Trek. And it's in this weird sweet spot of after, I'm trying to remember, because Laura's in it as well. And it's I'm trying to do the math in my head. It's only either a couple of years before or a couple of years after Star Trek Nemesis. So that's kind of, and it's in this 2-year period.
I saw a piece of art of Shaxx because they draw him sort of realistically, and he's got the Nemesis era uniform on. So I was like, everything about that's great. It's like, yeah, please give me that.
It out of nowhere. And then another thing they did was they had an Orion storyline, and they used the designs of the Orion from the animated series. So they're wearing those owls that they were wearing in there and stuff. No, it's I gotta say, man, IDW, they're killing it. And even before that, they finished the 5-year mission. So it's original series era, and they really literally get to the point where, all right, we only got a couple months left of our mission, and it ends with them, docking back at, Starfleet on Earth, or in orbit over Earth and stuff. And it's great. And literally, it's Captain's going to be promoted to an admiral. Spock's going to go off and contemplate his future on Vulcan. Another great comic, John Byrne wrote, and that was Leonard McCoy, Frontier Doctor.
That's on
Hilarious.
here. Hilarious. Actually, I got John Byrne's entire run, but calling out Leonard McCoy, Frontier Doctor. Crew I really liked. And the one with Pike's crew and following number 1. And then they just did one called Romulans. And I was really surprised how much I liked it, because I don't really care about the Romulans. They're nut jobs. But apparently John Byrne can draw anything, and I will love it.
That's true.
Amazing. And speaking of, there, that one off for some reason. Speaking of guys who are real Star Trek fans, like John Byrne knows what he's talking about, walking around a Star Trek thing. I don't really like his like fumetti things where you're taking Photoshop.
I thought they were kind of fun. I was going to mention those because I, as you likely remember, those photo novels. Again, prior to the motion picture coming out, those were great. And I kind of liked when he did those fumettis where he took existing photos and created new stories. There was a sequel to Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot with Gary. His buddy that
Gary Lockwood is the actor, but Gary Mitchell.
Gary Mitchell, yes indeed. Yeah, I knew it was Gary Lockwood, exactly.
Yeah.
And Sally Kellerman. But yeah, Gary Lockwood, he survives that ending in Where No Man Has Gone Before.
I have a feeling I would probably like them, but I didn't give him a chance because I was just mad that he wasn't drawing. It's like, it was so obvious. It's like, oh, well, he's an old guy now, and he doesn't feel like drawing and making all these he's a fantastic draftsman.
Oh my god, yes.
So like whenever he draws somebody, like all the vanishing point perspective is perfect, like everything. So I get where he wouldn't want to do that as an old man, but as a fan, I'm not going to support this workaround crap, John.
Fair enough.
Let's put all your art in AI. That'll be the one thing that I will appreciate AI for, is more John Byrne kind of art.
That's hilarious.
16 fingers, whatever. John sort of does too, except when Terry Austin makes it.
There is an Instagram where they're creating images of the original series, and I can't remember what it's called, but where they are using AI to manipulate.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. Yeah,
they're pretty funny. They are pretty funny.
Some is great, but I just, every once in a while you get something that's just like completely insupportable. It's like, well, that is clearly Harrison Ford in a Star Trek uniform. It's like, it's like that's where they lose me. It's like, that'd be cool, but hire the guy and do that for real. He'd look good in the monster we're in.
I saw someone manipulate a Jeffrey Hunter Captain Pike image and put a Fantastic Four.
And
it's like he would have been a great Reed Richards.
That was perfect because they did like little Kirby stuff in the background, and I was like, yeah, man. Even they used a very familiar picture too from him sitting in the chair, and so it's like, yeah, because Captain Pike's basically supposed to be Reed Richards, so that's why that works.
I am my buddy Rob Burnett, and I believe you know Rob.
Yeah,
and,
Rob.
You're friendly with Rob and everything.
Yeah.
When I kind of agree with him that it is a mistake to make the Cage real canon again, because it was the first attempt at Star Trek. And it's Star Trek still in the pupa stage, to put it in butterfly terms. It's like, no, that's not they hadn't figured out the formula yet. And they're like, no. Remember, Spock smiled in the Cage, and we have to that's why Spock smiles during Strange New Worlds. And it's like, no, wrong. I'm sorry. I don't agree with that. and it bothered me.
That's kids, though, because
Yeah.
they have this opportunity, so they want to put their stank on it, and I totally get that. But make it Star Trek smelly.
Yeah. Well, and again, I just hate the way I was just talking to Pornsack Pishak show last week about Star Trek, and I hate the fact that they make in Strange New Worlds, Spock is like a freshman in high school coming to a new school when it comes to him dealing with humans.
Yeah,
and it's like, no, man, he was at the academy. What happened to his girlfriend from This Side of Paradise?
right.
Jill
Right.
Ireland, the
Leia
beautiful
Kamali.
Jill Ireland.
Wait, she's from he knew her from Starfleet Academy? I don't remember that.
That's
Dang, I gotta watch that episode again.
Oh yeah, because that's why she has had it for Spock since their academy days.
Yeah, no, I totally.
And the spores affect him, so now he can finally admit that he loved her too. And it's so great. And that's the tragedy of that episode. Because then when he's back to being normal, it's like, no, I'm sorry, this is who I am. This is who I really am.
You know what does a lot of heavy lifting in that episode is the music.
Oh my God, yes.
That Leia theme that they play every time, and then give it to Spock as on the way out of that episode. Oh, dude, you have to be made out of stone to not be right at the end of that episode.
Well, and also Shore Leave, because it's the same music when they recreate Ruth.
Yeah.
First Academy years girlfriend.
Maybe that's why it works so well on me, because that's totally the lost love theme, right?
Yes,
of the first couple of seasons of Star Trek. Huh? I don't know. I had when I was in college, I had CDs of all the special effects.
Sure.
Just the orchestral, Alexander Courage cues, stuff like that, and I wouldn't listen to that track. It would bum me out.
I never watched reruns of 12 O'Clock High, the World War II.
Oh yeah, I love that show.
But that main theme has variations of the Star Trek Alexander Courage music.
Oh.
That if you listen to the theme song, you kind of hear da, 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 da. It's like,
yeah,
that's interesting. So yeah, I'm surprised by that. And also, you'll see a lot. In fact, the guy that's in charge of the colony in This Side of Paradise is, I think, a semi-regular on that 12 O'Clock High show. I think he was one of the officers.
I know that guy's in 60s shows all over the place. I don't know his name, but he's in everything.
Do you have of the Berman era? Do you have any favorite episodes of Trek? I mean, I'm a big, obviously, in the Pale Moonlight for DS9. Measure of Man is the best next gen, and it's ironic, second season.
I think that's definitely it. Melissa Snodgrass is that standout. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the Thomas Riker one, the later season.
Oh, me too.
I forget what that's called. It's the name of the ship that he was on, right?
No, that was a different one. That's the Pegasus, but I can't remember the name of it. I interviewed Frakes 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, I go, especially now that they're bringing you all back and you guys have the ability to do new stuff. I'm like, they got to make a Tom Riker movie where we see what happened to him, because last we heard, he was stuck in a Cardassian prison, during the DS9 era. And I'm like, it would be great to get him back, or even just have, nothing with, you don't have to make him maniacal and revenge or anything like that. But like literally like, okay, he was left behind. And it's like, this guy's been sitting in a Cardassian cell. Now that the Cardassians war is over, I would love to see Will and Tom Riker have a face-to-face. And honestly, I mean, I wish, if I were a better writer, I'd be submitting it to IDW as a short story of like, hey, there's some unresolved shit between them that I think needs to happen.
Second chances.
Second chances. Thank you, Beef. Thanks.
Thank you. You know what I would do? I would kill him, but redeem him right in the beginning. Right? He sacrifices himself to, God damn it. I'm W. Thomas Riker, not William T. Riker. And then everybody goes, oh, I love that character that they did nothing with. Right? That's what I would do. I would make you give a shit and then kill him at the end.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then
I love it.
And then that's the inciting incident for the rest of the thing. So you have to, and so at the end we're like, man, if only Tom was here.
I loved in Picard season 3 when Worf and Deanna first see each other. And Worf is basically saying, many is the time that I thought of you or whatever. And Recker's like, inappropriate.
Yeah, like, dude, I'm standing right here.
Cooper, what about the original cast movies? I know Trek 2 gets a lot of love, but as I've gotten older, I appreciate the motion picture more and more. It was really ambitious storytelling. 100%, man.
I have an answer for you right here, Cooper. Thank you for asking that question. Here's the best movies in order, according to me. Number 1, Wrath of Khan. Everybody kind of agrees with that. Number 2, Master and Commander. I was the first person to say that. Everybody else jumped on the board. But the third one is the Star Trek the Motion Picture, Cooper. I'm with you. That movie is smoking good. But then I have The Whales. I like number 6 a lot, personally. Final Frontier. And then I understand there are other Star Trek movies, but they are all nonsense. So they don't make my list.
The Shatner-directed Star Trek V, there's a lot of good stuff in it. As much of its whole is a mess. But I do love the three of them together. And again, unlike Discovery with this, Burnham is Spock's sister, it's, he's my brother. You're lying. I know you're lying because you've never had a brother. Well, technically, he's not my brother. He's my half-brother. And Kirk's like, I got to sit down. And it's like, because this is just ridiculous. And
I honestly think that's one of the problems that your regular person has with that movie. It's like, Spock's got a brother. And so knowing that, why did they give him a sister? It's like it didn't work the first time, really. And that's with every, you've seen the Center Seat episode about this.
Oh, yeah.
Where, Ralph Winter just like dumps on Shatner. But there's a lot of stuff that's kind of not his fault, but it's not handled well. So,
Yeah.
But that movie has a lot of serious Star Trek moments, right? That whole thing around the campfire that everybody thinks is ridiculous might be the most Star Trek thing ever.
I agree.
So like, I think that if you find that movie like neutral or positive, I think that's what separates the men from the boys and Star Trek fans. Because if you think that's one of the crappiest ones, you haven't seen all Star Trek movies, or you just I have a more nuanced view of what Star Trek is than you do. That's all.
and I agree with Cooper here. The McCoy scene with his father is a real standout. Yeah. Great acting, DeForest Kelley, and I forget the gentleman's name that played McCoy's dad. Ironically, he also played Mary Tyler Moore's dad, and he's Dr. Melnitz, Felix Unger's doctor in The Odd Couple.
That guy had all those famous doctor roles.
Great character actor. But no, and even a silly moment, but I love it when they're in the cell and Scotty blasts them out. And he's like, "What's the matter with you? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one?" And it's like, that's awesome, man. And again, Scotty's got, it's like, hey, don't forget Scotty. Scotty still got their back when everyone's dopey about Cybok and everything. I actually interviewed Lawrence Luckenbill a couple of years ago. And it's like,
I hope you asked him about Cocktail.
I didn't. Oh, I totally forgot about Cocktail. Jesus Christ. I talked to him about Boys in the Band and so many other great character moments he had over the years. I totally forgot that he's Elizabeth's dad in Cocktail. That's fantastic.
John, I'm your friend. I'm your friend that does that to you.
Well done.
Did you remember to bring extra underwear? Did you, John?
And of course, Roberts, what does God need a starship for? A classic.
Yeah.
And George Murdoch as that alien being from the original Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, he's the doctor there. And
that's the kind of movie, though, that everybody caps on, and then they spend 20 minutes saying how good it was, or all the things they enjoyed about it.
There's a lot of good scenes in it. Yeah?
Even I will say that movie's a mess, right? But that's part of its charm to me.
Absolutely,
right? That's the Star Trek thing. I mean, there's whole Star Trek episodes that has Space Lincoln in it. There's Star Trek episodes where hands are crushing the model.
Yes, Apollo.
Star Trek needs a little dopey, like. Yeah, okay. I don't think you understand the gravity of your situation, Captain. Come on, that's my son just was like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yes, really."
Yeah, I love when they're trying to get up to the higher level and everything, and he's got the rocket boots, and they're slowly sinking. Too many marshmallows. Fire the rockets!
Good stuff. Man. That's good.
You're killing me.
I think I hit everything on my list, actually. Oh, I didn't finish the top 5 TOS ones. I have Omega Glory. Tomorrow's Yesterday. The Captain Christopher one. Bread and Circuses. I love that one.
The Roman one, sure.
Corbomite Maneuver and Arena. Those are my top 5.
The Gorn. By the way,
sometimes I throw Tholian Web in there. I don't know.
I'm a big. Is it immunity syndrome where the giant amoeba?
Yeah, immunity syndrome.
Yeah, and I love that one where Spock's gonna sacrifice himself and everything.
Great,
fantastic episode. Yes,
and that episode is so tense and thrills a minute. Ends with the dumbest joke ever. You know, you're so worried about his Vulcan eyes, you forgot about his Vulcan ears. There's like practically the CSI Miami like at the end of that one.
That's very true. All right, another great original series. Oh, the Doomsday Machine. My God, what a great episode! And William Wyndham as Captain Decker or Commodore Decker. It's so good, and also just that tense moment of, you know, Kirk taking the Constellation into the Doomsday Machine, and the transporter not working. And gentlemen, I suggest you beam me up. Great
question. Yeah, that's
exactly,
great.
Man.
I love it. That's speaking of like super tense things that they could do in the old days that somehow New Trek has forgotten. But just remember at the end, we're like, Matt, where's your crew? And they're just huddled around their little, you know, computer in a little set made out of plywood, painted light blue with some red shit on the back and some dramatic lighting. And he's like, I beamed them down to the planet. He's like, the planet's gone. He goes, don't you think I know that? And like, when I was 12, I was like, oh my God. Anyway. So then, can I tell you something about William Wyndham? In 1987 and 88, I cut granite. And William Wyndham comes in and goes, hey, I'm an old guy. I need a gravestone. They come to my company and they're walking him around the yard. And I'm like, that's fucking William Wyndham.
Oh, did you talk to him about it at all?
I went over and I'm like, hey, to bother you, I know you guys are doing stuff. I'm a giant fan of your work and I love Star Trek. And I kind of like walked away and he said, hey, what's that guy do? And I'm like, oh, he's saw operator. He's like, get that guy to. So I cut William Wyndham's gravestone. Which,
holy cow!
I don't think he's used yet, which is bananas. But maybe.
Oh, I thought he had passed away, but maybe not.
But it has to be. That was like 40 years ago.
Do you remember? And I know you did your thing. Was it for the Sci-Fi Channel where you did that scene with Deanna Troi and everything? Talk about that.
That was MTV's Big Picture Special Edition. That's why I like 6 a lot. My good pal Rick Austin, I've known forever, was working at MTV, and I forget the guy's name now. Oh my God. The guy who did who's their movie guy? It's insane. I can't remember.
Kurt
Loder.
He
was their music guy. So Kurt Loder had done something, and Rick had Paramount had gotten the attention for this thing, and they said, "Hey, thanks for doing that. What do you want to do?" And he goes, "Well, Star Trek 6 is coming out. I'd love to do a piece for that." And they're like, "Yeah, absolutely." So he called me up instantly, and he's like, can you get out to LA? Because like you will save me a week's work just because I know how George Takei spells his last name, right? Just like anything you need for like it was a thing that was to promote Star Trek 6, and the conceit was that somebody was calling up the events of Star Trek 6 on the Enterprise D computer, and then we'd cut together interviews with actual actors. It was great. It was super fun. But like they'd need a thing going, oh, he's referencing this episode, and I'd go, it's that one. And they had like the commercially available VCR tapes that were like 2 episodes to a tape. Do you remember those?
Of course.
And they would be like, I would save some intern a lot of time because they'd go, that one? I'm like, I don't know. It's probably in the middle somewhere. And they'd go, oh, yeah, okay. Season 2 episode? Yeah, that's the one. And like Rick would just look at me and go, that's why I'm buying you dinner all week.
That's outstanding. That's like Burnett put together all the video montages for the Vegas Star Trek experience at the Vegas Hilton. And he was indispensable cutting together these great action scenes and great character scenes. No, man, exactly. That's why now supposedly New Trek would have like a couple nerds in the room helping them out with continuity. But it's like as I understood it from one of my Trek insiders, despite those people there, it didn't mean that their advice was always taken.
Yeah, we've all heard the same stuff. It's Alex Kurtzman was writing over, rewriting people that knew better than him. That's all. It's political. It always happens. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
It's just,
well, you wait until
he's
somebody
been
else
shuffled off upstairs though, hopefully. So
Well, that's again. I mean, I feel for Paramount's current situation. I mean, they're deeply in debt. Who knows what's going to happen once the company changes hands? And hopefully, there will be a new regime that's like, all right, thanks a lot, you're done. We're getting different producers. I'd like to see Mike McMahon get promoted because he clearly gets Star Trek.
the thing that's funny about that, just me looking at the whole scene, the thing that gets me is that there are guys that can run the administrative aspect and understand the political stuff and
Sure.
move everything out. And then there are guys that get what they're doing on TV, and it seems very rare to the point of I can't think of anybody that was a creative talent that ended up running a studio.
You're right. Berman,
because that's what they need.
You're right. Berman would delegate, Rick Berman, to those from a creative standpoint, and he contributed as well. But really, his strength was keeping the suits in line and even saying yes to things and never actually implementing them.
Right.
And also, he was not perfect. I know if you talk to certain cast members, a bit of a misogynist, really kind of didn't give Terry Farrell the grace that she wanted. And instead, it was like, well, there's the door. See you later. Thankfully, we got Nicole DeBoer to play Ezri Dax in that final season of DS9, and I thought she was great. But yeah, I feel bad for Terry Farrell. I feel bad for Gates McFadden, the way she was treated in the second season of Next Gen. So no, not a perfect man, but it does seem like at least he respected Roddenberry's rules, which really kept the show pure to a Star Trek edict that I think didn't continue in New Trek. And again, I don't know. What are you going to do?
I just don't get why these guys don't understand what they're writing for. I mean, nobody's going to hire me to do a Merchant Ivory movie, right? I mean, I could because I understand it, but I don't feel it. You know what I mean? And
but also the guys that were running Paramount. I mean, I'm sure you heard the same stories. The guy that was running CBS that got canceled, Julie Chen's husband.
Yeah, Walter or something, yeah.
No, not Walter. I forget his name, but essentially the guy that, he was running UPN when they shut down.
Oh, back then, yeah.
And also running CBS Paramount when they brought New Trek back. And that guy was like, Star Trek. Les Moonves.
Yeah.
Les Moonves. Yeah, Star Trek. That's the
I
one.
had to look that up. I'm like, why can I not remember this idiot?
Well, and his infamous quote supposedly was, Star Trek, that's the one with Darth Vader, right? No, wrong. And he just didn't understand sci-fi, period. And so really left it to Kurtzman, who was JJ's lieutenant, and Robert Orci was really, of the people in the Kurtzman group, it was Robert Orci that really was the knowledgeable Star Trek guy. And after Star Trek Into Darkness was so bad, he was kind of kicked out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, these guys are trying to fit Star Trek into a square hole.
Yeah.
Because it's just not have to save the world every 2 hours kind of theatrical thing. It just isn't. And you can make that thing into a franchise, but you have to have patience. And everybody's like, wow, everything's a franchise now. I got to have my universe and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but it took Marvel 10 years to do that, you guys. And they didn't think it was going to work for like the first 6 movies. Like nobody remembers that Iron Man was a Paramount movie and that Hulk was a Universal movie. And like they just don't because history is written by the winners. So this just came out of Kevin Feige's head, and everyone's a winner, baby. That's no lie, and that's not how it works.
No.
It's Kevin Feige. His job was to be, Laura Schooler Donner's, coffee boy on X-Men.
Yep.
So that guy did his time. Like, he learned the whole thing from soup to nuts. It's like they were saying there's going to be this crazy thing, and we need to like just groom this one guy to do it. And that's kind of what happened with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau with Star Wars. And Star Trek doesn't get one of those guys. I don't see it.
Well,
there's no TV show on this planet that has 60 years of people like you and me that could walk in there and do a B+ whole season of shows. Like, what does that mean? That's crazy.
I know our buddy John Price does not like Metalis, but at least Metalis, I think, spent his time in the salt mines of Berman Trek. And I like Picard season 3 more than John does. And I would trust him making more subsequent Trek. But instead of that, again, pretty much the fandom as a whole is like, Picard season 3 was great. It wins all these awards. And they're like, oh no, we're going ahead with Starfleet Academy. And it's like, we don't want that. Oh no, it's going to be great. Here it is. You're going to love it. And guess what? Tilly's going to be involved. And it's like, we hate Tilly. I'm sorry. We don't like the new. I don't know
why they're pushing that. It's just what?
I don't know.
Here's the thing. I'll wait until it comes out. But if that show isn't Star Trek Paper Chase, I'm gonna be embarrassed for them.
I love the Paper
Chase. That's where, if you're gonna do Starfleet Academy, that's the level you're fucking talking about, because you have taken all the Star Trek out of it, right? There's no boldly going except to class. There's like anything that you can do is a joke, right? Except if you get somebody that's got that John Houseman gravitas, and then you get somebody who does Boothby doing the earthy stuff. Okay, I can see how you can make that work, but that has to win Emmys, and it's not gonna. Sorry.
The only hope I have for a Starfleet Academy show is they had that episode of DS9 where it was Red Squad in a Defiant class ship that pick up Jake and Nog, and whoever the teacher was dies, so the lead cadet has to be in command. And you see all these like literally 15-year-olds running a starship, and it was kind of interesting. And it was, again, I appreciated what they were trying to do with that, and it showed all their flaws. So there is the potential, but my fear is because the writers that they hire for New Trek, they all come from these CW backgrounds.
Right, exactly.
So it's going to be Star Trek Gossip Girl.
Right.
And it's like,
nobody wants that.
No.
That's it exactly. You've just talked me out of even giving it a chance.
Well, and the other thing is, we'll see what this Section 31 movie is like. I've got a good buddy that's actually on the show as a writer, and I'm hoping for the best. But I'm sorry, Mir Giorgio is not an anti-hero. She's a villain. She used to eat Saru's race. I mean, it's like,
I don't know what they're doing on that one.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't buy. And everyone's like, oh, it's a redemption story. No, I'm sorry, she crossed the line.
Here's the thing, John. Like, what does a redemption story need the most? An audience who cares if your character's been redeemed or not. Like, the only reason they're pushing her is because she's an Academy Award-winning actress.
That's right.
Which is fine, but you better find that girl something to do in Star Trek. And what you've given her is idiocy. Like,
completely agree.
Star Trek doesn't need Section 31. Section 31 is kind of anti-Star Trek. But given that that's happening, explain to me how this lady from another universe that is an imperial leader of some kind is now a spy in what? Like, none of that makes any sense.
No, and maybe they're devising some sort of. Say it again.
I was gonna say, it doesn't make any sense. Not even in Doctor Who.
That's true. Timey-wimey. No, maybe they're fooling us, and we're gonna get a Winter Soldier level political thriller.
Right.
At Star Trek, I suppose it's possible. I mean, William Sadler as Sloan from Section 31. You had no idea if it was just he's one guy.
Yeah.
That is fucking with everybody, or if it really is this incredibly organized giant thing. And then season 2 of Discovery, it's like And I understand that it was something that was in the original Federation charter. So maybe at one point it was a cleaner, clandestine organization within Starfleet. I don't know. But again, just their execution of it was just horrible, to the point where they've got a secret base that's out there and it's this big giant thing. And it's like, I don't see how something that big could be very secret. I don't know. I have a bad feeling about it, but we'll see. We'll see what it is.
I'll put it this way. Yeah, so far Section 31 does not seem really well thought out. Every time it shows up, it's you always go, "What is that? Why did they do that? That huh?" And it's down to like their design choices, right? They made a little black
they have badges. What kind of secret organization has badges?
And then, yeah, I mean, I kind of get that, right? You're trying to sell something, but like it works as a Star Trek Next Generation communicator. So then you have tech that's 80 years ahead. That's some secret thing because we're the secret spy guys. And I get how that sounds good when you're eating a burrito and trying to convince Dave into it in the writer's room. But in Star Trek, that doesn't make a lick of sense. Not an iota of sense. Not a infinitesimal, fractional, made up, fictional, small particle of sense.
Well, and further, again, this company is bleeding money. And it looks like, based on the trailers for Discovery Season 5, they have new uniforms again. And it's like, all right, I understand. And again, you and I know from a comic book standpoint, they're devising merchandise. But it's like, nobody's buying the Discovery merchandise.
Right.
So what are you doing? I don't know.
You've seen all these shirts I have. I have iterations of all the very... Dan Shaheen would make fun of me on the Starfleet Quartermaster, the haberdasher. Not a single lick of anything from Discovery.
Why would you?
All the design choices are horrible. They're just horrible. And I hate them. Here's the thing that I didn't like mostly about the Section 31 design choices, but also I realized it added to my not liking Picard 3 as much as I could have, that everybody wears leather jackets like they're in the 21st century, right? And it's like, okay, in the future we've gone across from this, it's all replicated, no animals were harmed, but it still looks like leather, right? And so you just look like you're a bad guy in the Saint 2 with Val Kilmer, right? It's like you have to make things look otherworldly and forget the fact that Discovery is supposed to be 1,000 years in the future now. And everybody went, oh, hey, cool, guys from 1,000 years in the past. Why don't you come into our political ramifications and help us with this problem we have? It's like a whole bunch of Vikings like come into New York and we all go, hey, can you fix this?
Yes.
My router's not working.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me?
I made the same analogy, Larry.
Anyway.
Absolutely. It is like Vikings showing up and going, let me tell you what you're doing wrong with your society. You need to sacrifice goats to Thor, because that's what we did 1,000 years ago. It's
and
like,
look how we dress. Everything looks the same as your guys. That's cool.
ridiculous.
What? Yeah.
Cooper says Section 31 works as an antagonist in regular Trek episodes, but an entire movie about them just doesn't interest me. Yeah, again, we'll see. And I mean, I never fault any of the actors, including the entire cast of Discovery. Yeah. It's not their fault. It's the material they're given to work with. And I feel that way about Michelle Yeoh in this Section 31 thing. I'm curious, will they bring back Tyler, the converted Klingon that they made to look human? Is he going to be there?
I hope not.
I don't know.
The thing I kind of agree with all Cooper, but I kind of don't. I mean, the fact that Section 31 kind of works as an antagonist, it means that the setup is bad, right? Because there's no reason that Starfleet should be an antagonist against itself. I mean, it's so clear that they're all writing about. They got the lesson from old Star Trek, where Star Trek commented on current events, right? It made thematic choices. It made entertaining parables of current events. And these guys are like, oh, well, this is happening in the world. Let's just do our version of that.
Yep.
Which is not the same, right? No. And I don't think that the current guys get that. I think that they're doing that. That's all they got out of old Star Trek. So they're trying to do the same thing. And it's just the people who got what they were really doing in context. Like, I don't know. I don't understand. they keep saying there's fanboys in the writers' room, and we've done all our research and all that stuff. But Star Trek, there's no other television. Maybe you could do this with MASH if there was like another MASH show on. That just some show that has had people have just soaked up for 60 years. The audience knows it better than the people who are doing it. That shouldn't be possible.
No.
There should be people who go into Hollywood and learn what to do and create the things and get into the business. But they were Star Trek fans, right? So they get how to do this, right? And for Star Wars can do it. Marvel can do it, and for some reason Star Trek can't. And that's why I'm here to announce I'm buying Paramount.
Oh, Larry, if I had the money to back you on that, I would so do it in a heartbeat. By the way, did you notice that the Madam Web director, and forgive me, I don't remember the woman's name, but she at one point was going to do this proverbial Star Trek 4 that still hasn't managed to find its way to start shooting.
Yeah.
She was one of the directors that they were considering. And maybe we dodged a bullet seeing how bad Madam Web was.
I haven't been to Madam Web. We just saw Dune 2, though. Boy, I'm not a giant Dune scholar, and I kind of didn't respond well to the first version of this, mainly because I thought it was a complete movie. I bought my ticket, I was sitting down, the lights come in, it says Dune Part 1, and I went, what?
Yeah.
So I was in a bad mood for that whole movie, and I kind of didn't get the best. But anyway, we watched the day before yesterday as a family. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. I can't wait to see the new one. So we saw the new one, and it is bananas good.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. You know what's really neat? I'm a giant narrative guy. That's what I get out of movies and TV, but and I have no musical talent whatsoever, so I don't really. A sound thing is never a big deal to me, but the sound mix in this movie was like part of the film.
Wow.
It was really good. It was in your face when it was supposed to be, right? And not when it wasn't, which is sometimes a mix people don't really get right. But part of it was our theater is pretty good theater. We seeing the IMAX thing, so the guys running it are flicking the right buttons, you know.
Yeah.
But man, Dennis, I don't know how to say his last name. Dennis, French guy, the director. I love Arrival, and I love his Dune now. I love Blade Runner 2049. So if you're thinking about, I don't know, go see it. It's really good.
It's what I'm hearing. I know Burnett loved it too. So final comment from B Things. They think that referencing trivia can compensate for missing the themes and tone for that make people actually care about Star Trek. Absolutely, man. Member berries versus real writing and real effort. No, I agree. Yeah. Yeesh. All right, Larry, on that sour note, but again, a good positive note about Dune 2.
We sprinkled in lots of good stuff, man.
Absolutely, man.
I didn't miss a thing. DC Comics, I want to say Dead of Honor by Chris Claremont and Adam Hughes. That's one of my
great graphic novel. Fantastic.
Speaking of B things, that said a lot of references in it. It wasn't trivia. References because Chris Claremont knows how to write, and he's a Star Trek fan.
And yet it continued Star Trek 4. Jillian, the oceanographer, and Kirk are off on a little thing, and then they encounter an old girlfriend of Kirk. So there's a great TOS flashback story along with the modern story. No, that's a great graphic novel. Excellent graphic novel.
Anyway. Man, John, thanks for having me. You know, I'll talk about Star Trek another 2 hours.
I look forward to when you and John hold court as well, and I'm glad that Serious Star Trek, the podcast, is back up and running. Do you do an audio version or just YouTube?
Just the YouTube. Like, I'm not very technologically hip. We had the 2 years of Dan doing that, and now I'm kind of just running the steam and doing the wrenches. So we'll try to make it a little more polished.
Well, you always have good friends on that are massive Star Trek fans as well.
It's fun.
And I watched last week's episode. Everybody, it's on Tuesdays at 6 Eastern, 5 Central, and that's 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Perfect.
So, and it's a great hour discussion, and John Price, who's been writing wonderful essays about New Trek at Medium, and again through Burnett that's how I found John's writings. And so I was so happy that you and he were doing the show with Dan, and I'm glad you guys are continuing. It's
thanks
a
so
great,
much.
absolutely, man.
You're a
No, and we got to find probably a weekend afternoon when John can join us again. It's been a while since John's been on Word Balloon, but I love having the both of you on.
He's kind of sad he missed this. He has announced this. This is not me telling tales out of school. He's going to be a dad and of twins coming in August. So his time isn't his own really anymore. So he missed a Star Trek last week. So hopefully he'll be there this Tuesday, and we'll give him a hard time. And
it's
maybe
always
some suggestions for baby names. I think Delenn or something from that was
Babylon 5, Delenn.
Maybe something from the Orville.
That's hilarious. Bortus. Delenn and Bortus would be fantastic names for twins. That's fantastic. No, Larry, always a pleasure, man. Seriously, thanks.
Thank you.
You know, I knew we'd have another fun conversation as we always do. So looking forward to the next one. Everybody, thanks for watching. There will be no Word Balloon tomorrow night. But Wednesday, my dear buddy Tony Fleece is going to be on to talk about not only his excellent book with Tim Seeley, Local Man, but he's got a new series as well. And, of course, his wonderful Stray Dogs, which was a fantastic murdering story that pets were a witness to a serial killer. And it was pretty groundbreaking stuff. So I can't imagine what he's got next for us. But I'm very happy for Tony, and he'll be joining us on Wednesday night. So thanks a lot for watching. Everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.